Yemen War. The conflict. What is the Yemen War? The Yemen War is the civil war that is currently taking place in Yemen. The conflict is due to a failed transition of power from Ali Abdullah Saleh to Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi. The political transition was supposed to bring stability to Yemen following an Arab Spring uprising. The Yemen War is a civil war because it is contained in Yemen and it is between two opposing groups in that one country. Why was this war started? According to BBC News in their article, Yemen Crisis, Why Is There a War? As President Mr. Hadi struggled to deal with a variety of problems, including attacks by jihadists, a separatist movement in the south, the continuing loyalty of security personnel to Salah, as well as corruption, unemployment, and food insecurity. This article then goes on to explain the Houthi movement. The Houthi movement champions Yemen's Zadi Shia Muslim minority and fought a series of rebellions against Salah during the previous decade, took advantage of the new president's weakness by taking control of their northern heartland of Sada province and neighboring areas. This led to the rebels eventually taking the capital, Sana'a. Who is involved in this conflict? The government of Yemen and the Houthi rebels are the ones involved in the civil war. The reason for involvement for the Houthi rebels because they want an end to corruption, job opportunities for ordinary people, and an end to the influence of the Western world. Levels of analysis. Interstate. Statistical probabilities of war is the interstate level in effect here. This means that there is conflict due to effects of democracy, government structure, trade, etc. Freedom House reported in Yemen's Freedom Score last year to be 11 out of 100, which declares it as not free. BBC News explains this in their article, Yemen Crisis, Why Is There a War? How there are a few other reasons, corruption, unemployment, and food insecurity just being a few among them. With the government structure crumbling and already corrupt, it is no surprise that rebels rose up against the government, fighting for more freedom. You can also especially see here that because of the lack of democracy and an inefficient and corrupt government, the Houthi rebels and government of Yemen were forced into war by these factors. The government of Yemen was also having its government structure threatened, so that did not help either to alleviate things in this situation and actually led to more conflict. Individual deviations from rationality is the individual level of analysis in this conflict. This is when certain circumstances, situations, or things happen that cause people to look away from rationality and have to use less rational methods or ways. This usually happens when they have exhausted other methods or ways that are rational. You can think of this with the Houthi rebels in this situation. At first, they tried to do a transition of power with their president's deputy, and when that did not go smoothly, they had to resort to violence and to civil war for what is in their perspective to get what they want, which is less corruption, more freedom, more opportunities. Conclusion. The Houthi rebels clashed with the government of Yemen. After rational methods, the power transition did not go well. After this, with the government of Yemen fearing itself threatened and the Houthi rebels fighting for more freedom and an end to corruption is what brought about this civil war. This is learned through the levels of analysis. The levels of analysis here being interstate with statistical probabilities of war, and then individual with deviations from rationality. While the situation at hand seems very complex, when you look through the lenses of the levels of analysis, you are able to dwindle it down and see actually how each factor led to is what's happening now and where the conflict is at now in its timeline. So the conclusion to the civil war in Yemen is this. A government's failure of a power transition brought about violence between the government and rebels who are fighting for Yemen with no corruption, but with more freedom and opportunities for everyone, and one that is free from the West's influence. So it is a variety of things that led to this one big conflict. Then we have our material sources and our image